My brother's wife excluded my adopted daughter from all family photos because she doesn't really belong and would confuse future generations, so I exposed her racism at the family reunion and watched her get kicked out by everyone, including her own husband. I'm Sarah, and I've been married to my husband Mark for 8 years. We have 2 biological children, Emma who's 10 and Jake who's 7, plus our adopted daughter Lily who's 9. We adopted Lily when she was 4 after fostering her for over a year, and she's been the light of our lives ever since. Lily is black, and Mark and I are white, which has never been an issue for us or our immediate family. Our kids all love each other fiercely, and Lily has thrived in our home. She's incredibly smart, funny, and artistic, and honestly I can't imagine our family without her. The problem is my brother-in-law David's wife, Christina. David is Mark's older brother, and they've always been close, but Christina has been a source of tension since she married into the family 3 years ago. She's one of those people who thinks she's better than everyone else and has opinions about everything, but she usually keeps her worst thoughts to herself around the extended family. I first noticed something was off about 6 months after we finalized Lily's adoption. We were at Mark's parents' house for Easter, and Christina was taking photos of all the kids together. She kept positioning the children in different arrangements, and I noticed she was consistently placing Lily at the edge of the group or slightly behind the other kids. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, but then I watched her take several shots where she actually asked Lily to step out so she could get just the cousins in the photo. When I asked what she meant, she said she wanted some pictures of just the biological family members for the grandparents' photo album. Mark and I exchanged glances, but we didn't want to cause a scene at a family gathering, so we just made sure to take our own photos with all 3 of our children included. But something about Christina's behavior really bothered me, and I started paying closer attention to her interactions with Lily. Over the next few months, I noticed a pattern. Christina would be sweet and friendly to Emma and Jake, bringing them little gifts, and asking about school and activities. But with Lily, she was polite but distant, like she was tolerating her presence rather than genuinely engaging with her. The real problem started last Christmas. Mark's family has this tradition of doing a big professional family photo session every few years, and this was one of those years. Christina had volunteered to coordinate everything with a photographer, which should have been my first red flag. When we arrived at the photo studio, Christina had already discussed the shot list with the photographer. She planned multiple groupings, the whole extended family, just the grandparents with grandchildren, just the siblings with their families, and various other combinations. Everything seemed normal until we got to the grandchildren-only shots. Christina directed the photographer to arrange Emma, Jake, and David's 2 kids for the photo, but when Lily started to join them, Christina stopped her. "Oh honey, this one is just for the biological grandchildren," Christina said with a fake sweet smile. "We'll do another one with everyone after." I felt like I'd been slapped. Lily looked confused and hurt, and I could see Mark's jaw clench. But before either of us could say anything, Mark's mother spoke up. "What do you mean biological grandchildren?" she asked. "Lily is our granddaughter." Christina's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. "Of course she's part of the family," she said. "But for the formal family photos, I thought it would be nice to have some traditional shots showing the actual bloodline. You know, for historical purposes." Mark's father looked like he was about to explode, but Christina quickly directed everyone into the next pose before anyone could argue. She did eventually include Lily in some group shots, but always positioned her in ways that made it easy to crop her out later if desired. The whole drive home, Mark and I were furious but trying not to upset the kids. That night, after we'd put them to bed, we talked about what had happened and decided we needed to have a serious conversation with David about his wife's behavior. When we called David the next day, he was defensive at first. He said Christina hadn't meant anything by it and that we were being too sensitive. But when Mark explained exactly what had happened and how it had made Lily feel, David got quiet. "I'll talk to her," he said finally. "I'm sure she didn't realize how it came across." We thought that would be the end of it, but we were wrong. A few weeks later, Mark's sister Jessica was going through the photos Christina had ordered from the session, and she noticed something disturbing. In every single photo package Christina had ordered for various family members, she'd specifically chosen versions where Lily was either not visible or had been cropped out. Jessica called me immediately. "Sarah, you need to see these photos," she said. "I don't think this was an accident." When I saw the photos Christina had distributed, I was absolutely livid. She'd ordered beautiful 8x10 prints for all the grandparents and family members, but in every single one, Lily had been systematically removed. There were shots where you could literally see where she'd been cropped out, leaving awkward empty spaces or cutting off parts of other people. But the worst part was the family photo she'd had enlarged and framed for Mark's parents' anniversary gift. It was a gorgeous 16x20 print of the whole family, except Lily had been completely edited out. She'd even gone to the trouble of having someone digitally fill in the background where Lily had been standing. When Mark saw the photos, he was angrier than I'd ever seen him. He immediately called David, and this time the conversation didn't go well. David tried to defend Christina again, saying she was just trying to preserve the traditional family lineage and that we should understand her perspective. What perspective? Mark shouted. That our daughter doesn't count because she's adopted? That she's not really part of this family? David got defensive and said we were putting words in Christina's mouth, but Mark wasn't having it. He told David that if Christina couldn't treat all of our children equally, then we wouldn't be attending family events anymore. The call ended badly, with both brothers hanging up angry. Update 1. After the photo incident, things were tense between Mark and David for several weeks. Mark's parents were horrified when they found out what Christina had done, and they made it clear that all of their grandchildren were equally important to them. But Christina wasn't backing down. According to Jessica, who heard this from David's neighbor, Christina had been telling people in their social circle that we were being overly dramatic about the whole situation and that she was just trying to maintain accurate family records. She'd apparently said that adopted children were different from biological children and that it was important to preserve the real family history for future generations. She claimed she wasn't being racist, just practical, since Lily obviously didn't share the family's genetic heritage. When Mark heard about these comments, he was done being diplomatic. He decided we needed to take a stand, not just for Lily, but to make sure Christina understood that her behavior was completely unacceptable. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Mark's parents were planning their 40th wedding anniversary celebration, a big family reunion at a local park with extended family, friends, and neighbors. Christina had volunteered to help with the planning, which meant she'd probably try to control the photography again. Mark and I decided we weren't going to let that happen. First, we hired our own photographer for the event, someone who understood that all 3 of our children were to be treated equally in every shot. We also prepared a little speech for the occasion, planning to publicly thank Mark's parents for welcoming Lily into the family with such love and acceptance. But we also did something else. We put together a photo album showing Lily's journey with our family, from her first day with us as a foster child to her adoption day to all the wonderful moments we'd shared since then. We included photos of her with her grandparents, her siblings, and extended family members, showing how naturally she'd become part of our lives. The reunion was being held on a Saturday afternoon in early June. When we arrived, Christina was already there directing people around and, predictably, she'd brought her own photographer and was trying to organize group photos. I watched her carefully, and sure enough, when she started gathering the grandchildren for photos, she once again excluded Lily. But this time, Mark's mother was ready for her. "Christina," she said firmly, "I want all 6 of my grandchildren in this photo." "Of course," Christina said, but I could see her mentally calculating how to arrange everyone so Lily would be easy to crop out later. That's when Mark stepped in. He walked over to the photographer Christina had hired and had a quiet conversation with him. Within minutes, the photographer was packing up his equipment. "What's going on?" Christina asked, clearly frustrated. "I canceled your photographer," Mark said calmly. "We've hired our own, someone who understands that all of our children are family." Christina's face went red. "You can't just cancel my photographer. I've been planning this for weeks. And we've been watching you exclude our daughter for months," Mark replied. "So yes, I can and I did." That's when Christina really lost it. In front of about 50 family members and friends, she started yelling about how we were being unreasonable and how she was just trying to maintain proper family documentation. "It's not personal," she shouted. "But people looking at these photos 20 years from now are going to be confused about why there's a black child in all the family pictures. I'm thinking about the future." The entire party went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Mark's father stood up slowly. He's normally a quiet, gentle man, but when he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "Christina," he said, "I think you need to leave." "What?" Christina sputtered. "I'm family. I helped plan this whole thing." "No," Mark's mother said, standing next to her husband. "Someone who doesn't consider all of our grandchildren to be equally part of this family is not someone we want at our anniversary celebration." David looked absolutely mortified. He tried to calm Christina down and convince her to apologize, but she was too far gone. She started ranting about how everyone was being too politically correct and how she was just being honest about biological reality. That's when our 9-year-old Lily, who had been quietly holding my hand through this whole exchange, spoke up. "Why doesn't Aunt Christina like me?" she asked in a small voice that carried across the silent crowd. The question broke my heart, but it also seemed to break something in David. He looked at his wife with disgust and then knelt down to Lily's level. "She doesn't like herself very much," he said gently. "And sometimes when people don't like themselves, they say mean things about other people. But that's not about you, sweetie. You're perfect exactly as you are." Then he stood up and looked at Christina. "We're leaving," he said. "And we're going to have a very serious conversation when we get home." Christina tried to argue, but David was already walking toward their car. She had no choice but to follow him, muttering under her breath about how everyone was overreacting. After they left, the party resumed, but with a much different energy. Our photographer took beautiful photos of the whole family, making sure Lily was prominently included in every shot. Several extended family members made a point of telling us how much they loved having Lily in the family and how sorry they were about Christina's behavior. But the best part was watching Mark's parents with Lily for the rest of the afternoon. They made sure she felt extra loved and included, and by the end of the day, she was back to her usual happy self. Update 2. The fallout from the anniversary party was swift and dramatic. David called Mark the next morning to apologize for Christina's behavior and to let us know that they'd had a huge fight when they got home. According to David, Christina had tried to defend her position, claiming that everyone else was being naive about real family dynamics and that she was just being practical. But when David pointed out that she'd made a 9-year-old child feel unwanted and excluded, she'd gotten even angrier. "She said I was choosing your family over my own wife," David told Mark. "And I told her that if treating a child with basic human decency means choosing sides, then yes, I was choosing the side that doesn't make kids feel like garbage." Christina had apparently stormed out and gone to stay with her sister, leaving David to think about their marriage and what kind of person he'd married. But Christina wasn't done causing problems. Over the next few days, she started reaching out to extended family members and family friends, trying to get them to take her side. She was telling people that we'd ambushed her at the anniversary party and that she was being unfairly vilified for having traditional values. Most people weren't buying it, especially after witnessing her meltdown at the party. But a few distant relatives who hadn't been there were initially sympathetic to her version of events. That's when Jessica decided to take action. She created a group text with all the cousins and siblings, and shared the original photos that Christina had cropped and edited. When people saw the evidence of Christina's systematic exclusion of Lily, any remaining sympathy for her position evaporated. Jessica also shared some screenshots of social media posts Christina had made on her personal Facebook page, things we hadn't seen before. In them, Christina had shared articles about adoption trauma and identity confusion in mixed families, always with comments about how important it was to maintain biological family integrity. The posts made it clear that Christina's behavior wasn't just about photography or family records. She had genuine issues with our decision to adopt Lily and had been harboring these feelings for years. When David saw the posts, he was devastated. He realized that his wife had been actively working against one of his nieces while pretending to be a loving family member. Meanwhile, Lily was doing much better. The overwhelming support she'd received from the rest of the family at the anniversary party had reassured her that she was loved and wanted. We'd also started her in counseling to help her process the experience and understand that Christina's behavior was about Christina's problems, not about anything wrong with Lily. About 2 weeks after the anniversary party, David called and asked if he could come over to talk to us in person. When he arrived, he looked exhausted and sad. "I'm filing for divorce," he said simply. "I can't stay married to someone who would hurt a child the way Christina hurt Lily." He explained that he tried to get Christina to understand why her behavior was wrong and even suggested marriage counseling, but she'd refused to budge from her position. In fact, she'd doubled down, saying that if the family couldn't appreciate her honesty about family dynamics, then she didn't want to be part of it anyway. "She told me I had to choose between her and your family," David said. "And when I told her that was an easy choice, she said I was weak and that she'd never respected me in any way." David also told us that he discovered Christina had been saying terrible things about Lily to her own friends and family for years, describing her as a charity case and suggesting that we'd only adopted her to make ourselves feel good. "I'm so sorry," he said, tears in his eyes. "I should have stopped this years ago. I should have protected Lily better." Mark and I assured him that he wasn't responsible for his wife's behavior, and that we were proud of him for taking a stand when it really mattered. Update 3. Christina's reaction to David filing for divorce was predictably dramatic and vindictive. She hired an aggressive attorney and tried to get as much money as possible from the divorce settlement, claiming that David's family loyalty had damaged her reputation and emotional well-being. She also tried to turn David's extended family against us by claiming that we'd manipulated him into leaving her. She sent long, rambling emails to Mark's parents and siblings, detailing all the ways she felt she'd been wronged and demanding that they choose between her and us. No one was buying it. Mark's parents forwarded us some of the emails, and they were unhinged rants full of racial dog whistles and complaints about politically correct culture destroying traditional families. Christina also made the mistake of posting about the divorce on social media, painting herself as a victim of a family conspiracy. She shared our anniversary party incident but told a completely different version where we publicly humiliated her for having traditional family values. The post backfired spectacularly. Several family members who'd been at the party commented with the actual facts, and Christina's own friends started questioning her version of events. When people realized she was talking about excluding a 9-year-old adopted child from family photos, the comments turned overwhelmingly against her. Christina ended up deleting the post, but not before screenshots were taken and shared among our extended family and friend groups. Her attempt to gain sympathy had actually exposed her racism to an even wider circle of people. Meanwhile, David was working hard to rebuild his relationship with our family and especially with Lily. He started coming to her school events and art shows, and made sure to spend individual time with each of our kids when he visited. He also did something that really touched us. He commissioned a professional artist to create a beautiful family portrait that prominently featured Lily alongside Emma and Jake. He had it framed and gave it to Mark's parents as a replacement for the one Christina had edited. The divorce proceedings dragged on for several months, with Christina fighting for alimony and trying to claim that David's family had turned him against her. But her own social media posts and the testimony of family members who'd witnessed her behavior worked against her. In the end, she got much less than she'd hoped for, and David was awarded the house and most of their shared assets. Christina moved out of state to live with her sister, apparently telling people there that she'd been persecuted by her ex-husband's family for having traditional values. Update 4. It's been almost a year since the anniversary party incident, and I wanted to share how things have turned out for everyone involved. Lily is thriving. The counseling really helped her process what happened with Christina, and she now has a much better understanding that some people have problems that make them say hurtful things, but those problems aren't about her. She's confident, happy, and more secure in her place in our family than ever. The extended family has rallied around her in amazing ways. Mark's parents have made extra efforts to include her in special grandparent activities, and she has individual relationships with all of her aunts, uncles, and cousins. The anniversary party incident, as horrible as it was, actually brought everyone closer together. David has become one of Lily's biggest champions. He takes her on special uncle-niece dates, comes to all her school performances, and has even started volunteering with a local organization that supports adopted children. He says that seeing how Christina treated Lily made him realize he wanted to be part of the solution to these problems, not a passive bystander. His divorce was finalized 6 months ago, and while it was painful, he says he feels like he can finally be authentic about his values instead of making excuses for someone else's prejudice. Christina, from what we've heard through mutual acquaintances, has not changed her perspective at all. She's apparently told people in her new city that she was driven out of her community for having traditional family values, and she's found a new circle of friends who support her worldview. But here's the thing, nobody in our family misses her drama or her negative energy. Family gatherings are more relaxed and enjoyable now that we don't have to worry about someone excluding or belittling one of our children. The professional photos from the anniversary party turned out beautifully, and they're prominently displayed in Mark's parents' house and ours. Lily loves looking at them because she can see how naturally she fits into our big, loving family. We also learned something important through this experience. Sometimes when you stand up to prejudice and exclusion, you discover that most people are actually on the side of love and inclusion. The overwhelming support we received from extended family and friends showed us that Christina's views were not representative of the people who matter in our lives. Most importantly, we taught our children, all 3 of them, that family isn't about biology or appearance, it's about love, loyalty, and standing up for each other when it counts. Emma and Jake have become even more protective and loving toward their sister, and they've learned that speaking up against unfairness is always the right choice. Looking back, I'm actually grateful that Christina showed her true colors when she did. It was painful for Lily at the time, but it allowed us to address the problem directly and make sure our daughter knew that she had an entire extended family willing to fight for her inclusion and acceptance. Sometimes the worst people in your life do you a favor by revealing exactly who they are, giving you the opportunity to surround yourself with people who share your values instead. Christina thought she could quietly exclude and diminish our daughter, but instead she ended up excluding herself from a family that values love over prejudice. And that's exactly how it should be.